Let's start from here because some solutions being offered as to how we can deal with the current impasse between government and the doctors. Now, the Health Services Workers Union is suggesting that the National Labour Commission mandates the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to rather negotiate with the striking doctors, but not government.
The Health Services Workers Union is ahead of all unions and associations within the health sector. Leadership of the union has expressed worry about agitations in the sector, calling on feuding parties to refer the matter to the National Labour Commission, although the GMA says it has no confidence in the commission.
If we have issues like this, like the GMA type, 3 days, the issue must be resolved. Agreed. If you are even 4 people, either party to the negotiations, if you are not satisfied with what is going on, you need, the next stage is to refer the matter to the National Labour Commission and not to embark on strike.
The union again asked the feuding parties to respect principles of transparency and accountability underpinning negotiations.
Rules of engagement which we haven't respected is the fact that doctors engage themselves at a certain stage. The government was negotiating with them, which I feel shouldn't have been the issue. The institution tasked to negotiate is the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission representing government. It will also be backed by the employers or the management of the health sector. But government and Minister of Finance should not be party to this kind of negotiation.
The union also again called on government not to antagonize the striking doctors, but consider setting up a special allowance for all professional bodies in the health sector.
Health sector, medical doctors and my own professional members, some of my professional members qualified, should be able to be given a special allowance that no other body, because we are operating in a census service, can request for. One of the government fears is that as soon as they indicate some of these things, other sectors will come. But if it is properly done, it can take 5 years, it can take so many years for government to look at these things, nitty-gritty. And once you come out with that one, with the people, no other professional body can ask for that special allowance.
Right, so thanks so much for staying there. Now, tonight we'll try and take a critical look at how the media has, if I should say, moderated the interaction between the employer and the employees, the doctors and government, and also the concerns by some institutions that the doctors' demands are simply on the high side, and so they should tone down and get right things. My guest tonight, Dr. Maria Zakaria, is the Executive Director of the Institute for Social Research and Development. Doc, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being with us. And then Dr. Besan Maugbe is also the Executive Director of the Center for Media Analysis. Grateful gentlemen, you join us in the studio today. Let me start with Doc Zakaria. So it has gotten to the point where emergency services, I mean, this is life-threatening. Someone has an accident. He or she is losing blood. And then the doctor said, we won't attend to you because we have a problem with our employer. Now, that is serious.
Yeah.
How serious is this?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's a very serious situation, and the graphic description you've given to the situation calls for everybody. In fact, I mean, doctors are the categories of persons who are trained to be empathic, to actually realize the importance of life and to do everything at all times to ensure that life is protected. That is why it is enshrined in the Hippocratic Oath that you are going to be able to protect and preserve lives at all costs. Not even
the catchphrase is at all costs.
At all costs. That's the point. At all costs. So then it calls to question the basis of the use of the welfare or the lives of patients as a basis for the demand of an improvement in working conditions, or for whatever reason. I think it's not justifiable at all under any circumstance. You know, elsewhere,
my employer is not listening to me, or my employer is not giving me what I want. I cannot use that to get what I want from my employer.
I think it's just not right, especially for doctors, essential service providers. You see, we've been having this discourse. I'm also a member of the Ghana Medical Association, and I've worked in hospitals, and I understand the kind of relationship that is supposed to exist between a patient and a doctor, and that relationship is a special relationship. It's not a monetary relationship.
Great.
There's value to that relationship going beyond the placement of monetary consideration. You see, if you take that profession and the kinds of persons who have been carefully selected to be trained to come out as medical doctors, there is a higher expectation of that group than what we are experiencing now. So we are witnessing, modernization and changes in approaches in trying to address needs of persons. So we have argued, that why do you use the lives of patients? Doctors are well connected. We have a lot of institutions that exist. For instance, a typical example is the West African Health Organization that we call WAHO. This is a group that has interest in the welfare of healthcare professionals, not just healthcare professionals, in fact, healthcare delivery across the sub-region. If there is a misunderstanding, or if even there is a deadlock, or if there is no progress at negotiations, these are entities that you can lobby. You can lobby the executive director of WAHO. You can lobby the executive director of...
and they can impact on the negotiations?
They can actually make appeals to government on behalf of medical professionals. World Health Organization, they do have representatives in this country. And when matters go beyond a particular stage, that you are losing confidence in a partner, this is how, an advanced association that is made up of intellectuals, made up of people with integrity and good repute. These are the approaches that we expect, the group to adopt. Like I said, it's not just WAHO. Even the African Union has a subgroup entitled for health. Parliamentary Committee of Health. They have been engaged at this point in time, even though it's even at the time that doctors are on strike. The ECOWAS subgroup on health. A number of institutions that are relevant. Institutions like the National House of Chiefs.
Has the GMA ever used any of these institutions you mentioned in its interactions with this employer that you know?
No, not at all. In fact, we've made the last time this thing happened, which led to us, those of us who thought that it's not right at all to use the lives of patients as a basis for requesting an improvement in working conditions. We argued that it shouldn't happen, and we proposed some of these things to leadership of GMA for consideration. That look at this. But if you care to do the analysis, from 2011, strikes had been called. The first strike was called by GMA, requesting an improvement in salary levels with the Fair Wages Salaries Commission. This thing dragged on, and that issue was addressed. The next issue had to do with the conversion difference and then market premium, which related to pension levels. And this thing also led to the declaration of strike by GMA. Then it dragged and it was solved. In 2013, where we emerged, another strike was called, and this time it was about a collective, in association with other labor unions,
right?
Calling for a particular pension issue. Then year in year out, you hear strikes from Konfonochi junior doctors, that from Kolibri junior doctors. When we did an analysis of strikes at the Labour Commission, 46% of strikes that happen in this country are attributable to the GMA. I think it's appalling. This is a service that is declared as an essential service, and they are leading the league as far as those who have declared strikes. It's a paradox.
Some have argued. I'll quickly put this question to Dr. Merson Maugui, but let me pick your brains on this.
Yes.
Some have argued that the handling of the issue from the side of the media, from government commentators, politicians sitting in the media, making a statement, comments, have not helped the whole process.
I think it's not correct to say that. I do concede that commentary has not been, the best in my opinion. However, you are looking at the occurrence, which one preceded the other. You realize that most of this commentary even started after the strike was called. You understand? So you understand that there's no real clear relationship between that commentary and the declaration of the strike. Because before even the strike, there wasn't any commentary. The media didn't even talk about it, and there was no government communicators coming in to say anything. It was after the strike was called that commentators also came in, and I equally blame them for the line of communication that they took. But it is not to blame for the declaration of the strike.
Dr. Sakara, hold on for me. I have the Deputy General Secretary of the GMA. They have issued a statement. I'll quickly read through. The association says it will, in future, prevent its members from serving in Christian health institutions. Now, the statement, which was signed by the president of the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Kwabena Opoku-Eduse, condemned the dismissal of the 14 junior doctors or the relieving of duties of the 14 junior doctors at the Techiman Family Hospital. Now, again, the statement further indicated that the association will on Friday convene a meeting to review its roadmap on whether to resign or not. And so that's the statement from the GMA. Two key issues condemning the relieving of duties of 14 junior doctors at the Techiman Catholic Hospital, and then a meeting expected on Friday to review what has happened so far. Let me quickly speak to Dr. Justice Dufo Yankson. He's just joined me on phone. Dr. Yankson, I'm grateful once again for your time. Now, first of all, this threat of preventing members of the association from serving in Christian health institutions, it is the Techiman Hospital. Why have you then added all Christian health institutions? Hello, Dr. Yankson.
Yeah, hi, Bryce. Hello, Bryce.
Right, grateful. I can hear you now.
Okay, good. Bryce, I heard your question. I'm going to answer that, but just give me a few minutes to deal with a few things that Dr. Maria Zakaria mentioned on your program. I think we need to address these issues. Good evening, my good friend and brother, Dr. Maria. He was my classmate, so hey, we know each other very well.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes. You see, these are the issues. My brother, as he sits in the studio now, has actually left the consulting room. Ask him why he's the executive director of a research institute now. It's all because of the lack of good working conditions. At some point, he says he's a member of the Ghana Medical Association. The last time that we had such an action, he said he was no more a member of the association and that he had formed a group called ACMED. It was all for political reasons. But now he says he's a member. Thank God he wants to come back because he knows that there's something good, the Ghana Medical Association. He says that he did an analysis and 46% of all strikes at the Labour Commission are from the GMA. That is blatant inaccuracy. I don't want to use the word lie. But see, he mentioned 4 incidents. 2011, he mentioned 2013, he mentioned the bit about, the 2011 was about the single spine. The next bit was the 2013 where he spoke about conversion difference, reduced pensions. Then he spoke about the general labor group, this reduced pension, tier 2 pensions issue. And today, how can 4 incidents be equated to 46% of all strikes that the Labour Commission has seen? Look, you go to the Labour Commission and find out how many strikes they have had to encounter lately and do the analysis and tell me that 4 incidents will amount to 46%. So that is blatant, misrepresentation of the facts. Beyond that, he even talks about the fact that lobbying and all that would have solved these issues properly. Look, we live in a country where ideally everybody knows that these are the problems in this country. The ordinary man, up to the man at the very top, know that there are certain things that ought to be corrected. If things are not corrected, look, I tell you what, in the first place, we don't even need to lobby everybody for somebody to know that I need to do the right thing.
That's the answer.
He talks about
Dr.
the
Youngson.
Parliamentary Select Committee on Health. Let me
Dr.
address
Youngson,
this. We've gone to lobby all of them.
Can I interrupt
He says
briefly?
that, no, please, very important. He
yes.
says that as we speak, our reduced pensions have been corrected. That is also blatant lie. The reduced pensions are still with us. They have not been corrected. So let my brother put things in the right perspective so that we can go ahead and do what is right and also help everybody who has to be a member of the GMA and also ensure that at least we go back to our consulting room and ensure that things are done properly. Now let's go to Techiman.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Techiman. See, the truth is this: the Ghana Medical Association cherishes every single member of that organization. Techiman is part of CHAG, the Christian Health Associations of Ghana.
Yes.
Yes. We believe that if you touch one member of ours, we need to bring the full might of the medical association to bear. We stand solidly behind these 14 doctors. And as a sign of protest, we are in touch with the national leadership of CHAG because Techiman falls under CHAG. We are in touch with them. And that is where we said, going forward, none of our members may even work there. Because, look, at that level, they should be able to talk to the Vicar General at Techiman. We believe that it is a partnership. We deal with the people at the very top, and we also deal with the people at the institutional level. But if you want to use those tactics to intimidate our people, we will never budge.
Okay.
And I tell you what, if they continue, the full might will bring to bear on that particular facility in particular, and then CHAG and life. That one we promise you. But if Dr. Zakaria, my good friend, says that our demands are outrageous, I think he doesn't understand the issue. Every single we've demanded.
Dr. Youngson, those are his opinions. So
in the public service of Ghana, what we propose are initial proposals for negotiations. We know that when you go into negotiations, you don't get everything. So you shouldn't sit there and say that our demands are outrageous. They are never at all.
Dr. Youngson, I don't want us to. I don't want us to go back to whether demands the issue about what you put on the table.
Sorry, says that he says our demands are outrageous, and I'm telling you that is not at all.
That is his opinion.
One key thing is that ask him why he has deserted the consortium and when was the last time he worked.
Okay, you leave that to me, but I think that we can dialogue on getting this thing dealt with. The statement is also indicating that on Friday, a meeting is expected to be convened, and that meeting perhaps will either get a strike to continue or we'll have to stop somewhere. Now, is the GMA perhaps given an assurance that Friday the Ghanaian public will be smiling, perhaps based on what that meeting will come out with?
Well, honestly speaking, let me say clearly that I cannot preempt the decision of the General Assembly. But just as we quoted, this has been sanctioned by the National Executive Council, bearing in mind the various developments and appeals that have gone on. And then we also know that at that meeting, the current situation, together with all the appeals and developments in the country, will be reviewed. If the decision of general membership is that we should vary what is happening, why not? We as leaders will implement their instructions.
Great. Not
our instructions. We don't have any power to instruct them. They instruct us and we implement. And that is why the very body that calls for this activity, as we find ourselves in now, is being called upon by the National Executive Council to take decisions after we have briefed them on all that has happened, including the propaganda that has also gone on. So for us, stay tuned, let the day come, let's deliberate on the issues. And as we said, if the review says that it is A, B, or C that are supposed to be done, we'll communicate it to the people of Ghana.
All right.
I cannot preempt their decision.
I'm tempted to say amen to that, hoping for a good sign on Friday. Dr. Youngson, I'm grateful you joined us. Let me quickly go to Dr. Messan. Dr. Messan, some have argued that The doctors and government issue, this particular issue, could have been handled but for the media. Let me start with you there. Did the media do anything wrong?
I don't think so. The media hasn't done anything wrong. I think we should even commend the media in the sense that the media has played its critical role in times of this nature, where the media's role becomes creating the platform for the dialogue, creating the platform for the onward discussing or for the discourse to continue.
In creating the platform, we didn't fuel the tensions?
Not at all. The media hasn't created any
where
tension.
The president makes a statement and it is carried on the local radio in the Twi language, the Gan language, and it is twisted.
I will come to that. I will come to that. But I have to say that the media needs to be commended. For instance, they devoted editorial columns, even calling the truce to a peaceful table, and this is very commendable. And then when you look at even the various headlines that were splashed, they were not headlines that were intended to create anxiety. They were actually headlines emanating from facts, factualities that have been happening in this country relating to the strike action from our brothers in GMA. And looking at this, this is a point where you expect the media to really create this critical platform, and I think they've done that. But if we have to dovetail that into the president's comment, I would say that unfortunately we didn't really appreciate where the president was coming from. Communication is about either being asymmetrical or complementary. And asymmetrical can either be constructive or deconstructive. But from the presidential point of view, what the president did was actually assuming that asymmetrical position, but in a constructive context, where the president appealed to the nation. Perhaps we others try to actually twist it to create it or give it a caveat of political arrogance. But I don't think the president actually exhibited that. And I think this is the time that we need to rally behind the president, equally rally behind GMA, and see how we can bring two parties together.
Some have argued, I'm not cutting, but then the argument is that in bringing these two parties to the platform, the media then begin to knock their heads together. So a media house calls the general secretary of the GME and says, well, the Minister of Health or an NDC commentator said, well, we won't pay them today, we won't pay them tomorrow. What is your reaction to it?
You see,
and then the result is insults.
Exactly. I think this is where commentators like us needs to be very mindful. Especially a media has its own milieu, a media has its own culture, and you need to appreciate where the media questions are coming from. Otherwise, you rather add to the blunders that one wants to cause. And we need to also know that every message is a predetermined with certain or expectations in terms of objectives that the writer or the speaker wants to set based on the various agendas and based on the frames they want us to consume as people. And for instance, I had a similar situation where, depending on the way the questions were put to me, I could see where the journalist was actually driving at, to actually create a context that will give certain negativity to the president's remark. But I think this is where we need to be very, very mindful as communicators.
So at least the media somehow might have slightly bent to the negative side. That's what you want to say?
They didn't bend, but there was that intention to actually color that political statement from the president in that frame, because framing is how do they want us to think about something, but not the agenda. So that framing was very, very critical. And I think this is where most people actually got off the hook with it, that they couldn't really tell what type of framing the media was trying to create. Because when they give you the frame, that is what the public is going to really think about and how we're going to associate with that.
Let me go to Dr. Zakaria. Doc, the GMA has signaled a meeting. Now, you suggested, for instance, that there are certain institutions that could have been used to resolve this. From what we just heard from Dr. Yankse, do you see signs that the confusion could be resolved in a few, let's say, weeks?
I thank you so much. I think that it's the expectation of all of us, especially those of us who are, concerned about this impasse and its impact on the patients and the generality of Ghanaians. So it is the expectation, and it is my belief that the outcome will be positive, because I know a lot of doctors. I work with them, and I know how they think, and I'm convinced that doctors do not, want to take decisions that will hurt innocent ones. So I'm very optimistic that this meeting that is called on Friday, the outcome is going to be positive, because, like you said, the generality of the doctors are going to be present, and they are going to review the issues that have come up from the background that Dr. Dufo has given. One can see that if you compare the appeals against the propaganda that is said are the factors that are going to review at Friday's meeting, it points to a direction that suggests that they are going to soften the position. We expect that they just take a decision to call off the strike and then explore other ways of getting these matters resolved. In fact, I would maybe encourage that another meeting be called and committees be set up at GMA to actually take a comprehensive look at ways and means of requesting government to actually work on conditions of service, salaries, premium, and all other factors that doctors
some
are concerned
have
about.
Suggested, for instance, the GMA get the services of a professional negotiator and get back to the wards and allow that professional person to do the work.
You see, when you come to this particular component of this whole thing, it's even much more complicated. And I've argued that this function of negotiations is not a function of the GMA. That has been my position. Why? The Ghana Medical Association is made up of both private and public doctors. Now, this negotiation is with the government, which concerns only public sector doctors. Now, it is not surprising that at a Congress, all executives could emerge to be private practitioners. And if the leadership are private practitioners and they are those to negotiate the working conditions of public sector doctors, you can understand that kind of paradox.
Right.
So it's clear that the GMA is not the appropriate body to be engaging in negotiations. And in fact, the law does not make GMA the body to be engaged in these negotiations. That is why the Health Service Workers Union has, even joined the debate. In fact, that is the appropriate body, which includes the GMA. GMA has representation in the Health Service Workers Union, and all other subgroups of health workers are represented in this union, and they have the collective bargaining agreement, which is supposed to be used to engage the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission in salary negotiations. Again, another thing about GMA, this issue of CHAG came in, and it's all again about this issue of controversy and paradox. CHAG members are also members of the GMA, doctors who work for CHAG.
Right.
Now, the CHAG is a group of health facilities that is distinctly different from the Ghana Health Service, the non-CHAG institutions, and which are also different from the teaching hospitals. And then also teaching hospitals are also equally different from research institutions where doctors work. And all these doctors are members of the GMA. Now, CHAG, they have conditions of service. If you go to Christian Health Associations of Ghana facilities, they have conditions of service. They tell you what you are entitled to. Again, if you go to facilities like the VRA Hospital, where doctors work, and the doctors who work in the VRA Hospital are members of the Ghana Medical Association, they have conditions of service that is properly documented. We also have doctors who work for educational institutions, like the medical school, like the University of Diploma Studies Medical School, like Ken University Medical School. They are working under separate conditions of service. Now, you see how it is difficult to now put all these entities together, represented by another group that is very, very complicated, to negotiate the working conditions of different categories of persons working under different conditions. So this whole thing ought to be looked at. What we are proposing is that the conditions of service of doctors can be taken up by facilities where they work. So, for instance, Kolibu Teaching Hospital, which is an autonomous body run by a board of its own with a chief executive, can engage its doctors and then negotiate their conditions of service, and then get it sanctioned for implementation.
Let me pick some words from Dr. Maugbe. So, from where we are, where the GMA has issued this statement to meet on Friday, expecting something from them, how should the media carry itself as far as getting to speak to GMA, getting to speak to government?
Yes, this is where we expect the media to actually put on its objectivity cloth. One may ask, objectivity is difficult or it's very challenging to attain, but this is where the media has to play that neutrality role of acting as the bridge between the two. For instance, we need to identify the main source of the communication, the main source of information. This is where the media should not be actually galloping for information from every sources, but we need to identify who constitute or what constitute the source of protagonists for whatever information we want to disseminate to the public. And not until we do that, we will then be having this back and forth. Yes.
Let me get some last words from Dr. Yankson before he drops his line. Doc, quickly before we wrap up, the fact that a professional negotiator could do this work on behalf of the doctors, is that possible? Would the GMA agree to such a suggestion?
Let's put things to their right perspective. I think my brother Maria doesn't have a good understanding of the issue. One, the Ghana Medical Association is not part of the Health Services Workers Union. The Ghana Medical Association is a registered trade union on its own with its own collective bargaining certificate. Its membership is only doctors, so that union is made up of only doctors. Under the current labor laws and the regulations, any union with its own collective bargaining certificate cannot speak for another. The Health Services Workers Union is a different body altogether. The name may be misleading, but it is not about all health service workers as the people who work in the health sector. The Health Services Workers Union is made up of all the other professionals other than the nurses, the pharmacists, and the doctors. And even the other professionals, as we speak, a lot of them are even getting out of it, like the biomedical scientists, the physician assistants. So if anything at all, it is those who were originally under that body, like the physician's assistants and the biomedical scientists, who he can even say that should come under the umbrella of the Health Service Workers Union when it comes to the negotiations. What I want him to understand is that the GMA is qualified by law because we are a registered trade union with our own collective bargaining certificate to negotiate for our members. Unfortunately, what he's getting wrong is that he does not determine who the GMA sends to the negotiating table when it comes to negotiation.
Dr. Yankson, this is only a suggestion. He's not determining. It's a suggestion that
it's a misinformation. He said we are not the right body. We should have gone under the Health Service Workers Union and all that. That is what I'm correcting here. The GMA is competent and is qualified under the laws of the country to negotiate for doctors. So he shouldn't mislead anybody.
Grateful, Dr. Yankson, for speaking to us once again.
I think
quickly react. 30
seconds. I think clarity is needed on this particular issue.
Briefly,
The point I'm making is that I'm talking about an ideal situation, and I gave a background of why I think GMA should not be the entity engaging government in the determination of the conditions of service of public sector doctors. I'm saying so because the GMA is made up of several other groups that are not necessarily public sector doctors. And so for that group to take a decision about who goes to negotiate on behalf of doctors, I think is an anomaly. So that was why I suggested, and I think it is right, that all these bodies under the health comes under the Health Services Workers Union, and then there they can engage Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to negotiate for
Grateful.
conditions of service.
Grateful. Dr. Mario Zakaria is the Executive Director of the Institute for Social Research and Development. Dr. Mesan Magui, Executive Director of the Center for Media Analysis. Sorry, we have to quickly run away because our time is fast spent. We're grateful you stayed there to be part of the show. We should have opened the phone lines for you to make your contributions, but we're sorry, we can't do that. We'll give you the opportunity. But stay on our social media platforms and stay on this particular discussion. That's how we're wrapping up on the big one.